Hi, everybody, and this is Maya Good, and this is day 5 of Novel Prep Month. But before we get started, let's get the business out of the way. If you have come into the series in the middle, look in the down bar for the link to the day 1 video. These videos are really meant to take you from initial idea all the way to being ready to start NaNoWriMo off with a bang. Now, to let you know, I am not a published author. I am not a writing teacher. I am just somebody who has failed multiple NaNoWriMos before finally discovering some lessons that really helped me get going. So, what are we going to do today? Today, we are going to solve probably the biggest problem new writers have, and that is what happens when you accidentally slip up and you tell somebody, I'm writing a book, and their first response is, so, what is your book about? And that's what we're going to do today, your one sentence summary. So, let's get going. I was first introduced to the one sentence summary as a sales tool when I had to do an elevator pitch when I sold mortgages. And the concept really is if you run into somebody, you only have a few seconds and you want to pitch them, what do you say? That is your elevator pitch. So, years later, when I started actually trying to understand why I wasn't successful with NaNoWriMo, and I found the snowflake method, when he talked about his one sentence summary, a bell went off because really your one sentence summary is your elevator pitch. It is what you respond with if somebody says, what is your book about? It is also a really important tool to use when you are stuck in your book and you don't know what to write next, or after the fact when you start doing revisions. Because one of the steps in revision is really making sure that all aspects of your novel are promoting or lifting up the primary goal of the book. So, what we're going to do today is figure out what is your primary objective, what is the main theme, what is the one sentence summary of your novel. Now, I do not recommend going out and buying a bunch of books right before National Novel Writing Month. Yes, studying craft books is great, it's handy, it's extremely useful, but doing that in the month of October can really sideline you and it can make it difficult to move forward because then you suddenly feel like you have to learn everything before you can get started. But I do make an exception. The book, How to Write Your Novel with the Snowflake Method, I'm pretty sure that's the title. I will put the link in the down bar, is actually a really quick read. And much like this video series, it takes you step by step through creating your outline. And it uses the idea of a narrative outline, which is something that instead of bullet points and beats, it really is if you had to close your eyes and describe your novel to somebody, what would you say? And by describing it in a narrative way, A, it makes outlining much easier, but also it makes it more applicable when you're actually writing your book. The idea being that a snowflake starts with one point and it branches off, and then those branches have branches, and then those branches have branches. And essentially, that's what you're going to be doing with this outlining method. I don't stick strictly to the snowflake method, I do deviate quite a bit. But one place where I really feel like the snowflake method does its most good is in the first, I would say, 4 stages of the snowflake method. The idea of coming up with your primary one sentence summary and then taking that summary and creating a paragraph summary and taking that paragraph summary and creating a page summary and then even going up to like a 4-page summary. It is so helpful to helping you figure out and find your story, because the truth is you don't have to know your story before you get started. The snowflake method is really helping you get out the ditch digging tools and really dig out the story that's already there. So, where are you going to start? Every story has a character. Doesn't need to be human. Watership Down is a perfectly good example. But every story has a character and every story has conflict. And that's where we're going to start today. So, for my example, I'm going to use the idea of serial killer because my author example didn't follow directions and narrow it down further. My author just decided serial killer is just the greatest idea for a novel ever. So now my author has to figure out, who is the serial killer? Because there are many types of serial killers. And when you describe your person, I want you to describe your main character in just a couple words. Most likely, you already have a vague notion of who this character is. So, I would recommend using physical brainstorming, just really active physical brainstorming with pens and papers, exercise, fluid motion. Just really get your creative juices going and brainstorm what kind of traits your main character could have. So, for serial killer, there are lots of different types of serial killers. There are grungy backwoods serial killers like in Deliverance, or maybe it's a sly, super smart psychological serial killer like in Hannibal. From this main character, I want you to describe them in a couple words, not using a name. So I'm going to call him sophisticated, sexy serial killer. Yeah, it's that lame. But you know what? It's an example on YouTube, and I'm not using my actual novel. So there you go. Sophisticated, sexy serial killer. So, what does your character want? And that is going to help you find your conflict. What is it that they want? And then what is standing in their way? So, for my sexy, sophisticated serial killer, he's in love with a policewoman. But that doesn't really tell me anything. Like, what kind, it can be a policewoman, but what kind of policewoman? Is she older? Is she younger? Is she a grizzled detective? Is she an inhuman? In this situation, I'm going to say my sexy, sophisticated serial killer is in love with a young, inhuman FBI agent. Yeah, it's lame. But you know what? It's Silence of the Lambs, right? So in this situation, who they are provides conflict. He can't have her because she's an FBI agent. But let's make it more specific. We've got um hmm we've got our sexy sophisticated serial killer is in love with the young inhuman FBI agent who's tasked to destroy him or who's tasked to arrest him. Yeah, I told you the examples were lame, but you get what you get, you know? These videos are free. But the idea being that you come up with your one sentence summary, it's less than 15 words. And then you start perfecting it. You don't sit down and perfectly just accept the first 15-word summary that comes out of your mouth or off your fingertips. You look at that 15-word summary and then you start analyzing it, every word. And you ask yourself, is this the best way to describe this character? Is this the best way to describe this conflict? Is this the best way to describe what is preventing them from getting what they want? Because really, that's where the conflict in all stories happen. You have somebody or something that needs something, and something else is standing in its way. And it doesn't matter whether it is a literary novel or whether it is a genre novel, essentially, all conflict boils down to that. You have a nation that wants to be free and they can't because they're under occupation. You have a princess that wants to find her prince, but she can't because she's locked in a tower. Okay, these are how we structure stories. And I'm not going to spend a whole lot of time on it. You can spend decades studying tension and all of these different aspects of what creates a story. But if you rip all of that away and just turn around, look at a 5-year-old and tell them the story, it comes naturally because we as humans are storytellers. If you ask a 5-year-old to tell you a story, they're going to have a character, they're going to have a plot, they're going to have tension. It's the most natural thing. It's right up there with breathing and walking upright. It's something that all humans do. And when a little kid tries to tell a story and it doesn't have any tension, you laugh and you giggle because being able to develop that tension is a developmental milestone. And it's something that we all develop eventually. And so rather than trying to get all analytical and professorish right before NaNoWriMo, what I want you to do is to rip away all the things that you've been taught and to just go in your shower and out loud tell yourself the story. And then write your 15-word summary. It really is that easy. And once you write it, I want you to wait a few hours or maybe wait until the next day and then rewrite it over and over and over, changing small pieces until you have the best, strongest, most accurate, most emotional, most tension filled 15-word summary you can imagine. And then we're going to take that 15-word summary and we are going to develop it. But that 15-word summary, that is the core of your snowflake. The better that summary is, the easier the rest of the snowflake will be. Now, it doesn't have to be perfect because as we develop the rest of the snowflake, we will keep coming back and revising and molding and changing this 15-word summary. But a 15-word summary is such a great tool to use when you write your novel. What I did last year is I actually wrote my 15-word summary on a piece of paper and I hung it above my computer. And let me tell you, anytime that I wasn't sure where to go or I wasn't sure if a scene belonged, I could look at that 15-word summary and instantly be reminded of what the core of my story is. So, get writing, and I'll see you tomorrow. Ciao.